How can somebody whose track record is so obviously hideous enjoy any support, but crucially with Farage, not bear any responsibility for the things that he's actually done?
I'm utterly flummoxed that you councillors stayed oiks with your one toilet slums a cheering reforms win. I mean, I'd hardly call it a win. A by-election in Labour's safest seat, 2 mayors, 10 councillors and over 600 councils. But how dare you? How dare you working class scum?
People like James O'Brien are very much the has-beens. They're going to wake up one day and suddenly realise, actually, they better change tack or they're going to end up in the dustbin of history. He's always been sneering and snide. He deliberately mispronounces Farage as Farage.
Breaking right now, James O'Brien in meltdown over Nigel Farage's big win. And if there's anything to come out of last week's results that gives me joy, it's this. The Labour Broadcasting Company, as I now call LBC, has taken on the mantle of official media opposition to Reform UK, but it's their mid-morning presenter who seems to be in the midst of a monumental meltdown. Watch.
How has he managed to avoid responsibility for all of the stuff that he's ushered in? I mean, he repeatedly demonstrates himself. He repeatedly shows himself to be either not very bright in terms of the Liz Truss moment, not very patriotic in terms of the Vladimir Putin moment, and not very right in terms of Brexit. 2014, when he last came into this studio, and I think you'd allow me to suggest that I demonstrated how easy it is to show him for exactly what he is, so much so that, of course, that his own publicist dragged him out of the studio by his jacket lapels.
Sorry, we have an agreement about timing. You've massively...
This is Patrick O'Flynn, UKIP's Director of Communications and former political commentator on the Daily Express.
How can somebody whose track record is so obviously hideous enjoy any support, but crucially with Farage, not bear any responsibility for the things that he's actually done?
I mean, he just makes my skin crawl on so many levels. Firstly, having to flash back to that clip from 2014. Also, the way he can't pronounce his last name correctly. It infuriates me all. And we will get analysis from our superstar panel, Alex Phillips and Henry Bolton, in just 1 minute. But first, I have to show you, because this has made me laugh so much. Dapper Laughs, brilliant cancelled comedian who is doing the best work of his career, sums up James O'Brien so perfectly here.
Good morning. I'm taking calls from you knuckle-dragging, chip-shop-loving peasants. Yes, you reform-voting, pie-gobbling idiots who've been duped by none other than, and I've got to be careful when I say his name because I get a twinge in my tweed trousers that I can't tell is a semi or a bit of piss coming out, but by Nigel Farage, that pint-guzzling fag, chomping ruddy-cheeked swindler. I'm James O'Brien, LBC's beacon of brilliance, and I'm utterly flummoxed that you councillors stayed oiks with your one toilet slums a cheering reforms win. I mean, I'd hardly call it a win. A by-election in Labour's safest seat, 2 mayors, 10 councillors and over 600 councils. But how dare you working class scum voice your opinion?
And Alex, isn't this the brilliant thing? Like, the left, the mainstream media, they're just repeating the same mistakes of Brexit all over again. You're just too stupid. What are you thinking? They don't get it, do they? And I think it's actually going to be wonderful to watch the downfall of the establishment mainstream media at the same time as the Uni Party.
Isn't it funny looking at James O'Brien, how about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, he was on the button and there were huge amounts of people who thought he was genius and funny and ever so witty for putting down the right and saying he knows best on politics. And yet time has proven him wrong. And how archaic and out of date he looks now, how like yesterday's man he seems. The world has changed irrevocably in the last few months, in the last couple of years, and people like James O'Brien are very much the has-beens. They're going to wake up one day and suddenly realise, actually, they better change tack or they're going to end up in the dustbin of history. He's always been sneering and snide. He deliberately mispronounces Farage as Farage. This is kind of his ploy. This is
pathetic, isn't it?
This is what he does, and he's earned some big bucks over the years doing it. Let's see how long his star in broadcasting continues in the skies, because I just kind of feel like it just seems so gratingly out of touch with where the public is at, particularly considering the recent reform results.
Totally. Henry Bolton, your take?
The most unpleasant, obnoxious, grating. That was a great word there, Alex. Grating individual that I think exists in British broadcasting anywhere at any level. No, he's a horrible piece of work. But I would argue that actually he might be representing an era that is on its way out of the door. I do hope so. But there are a great many people who simply think this is an aberration, who are arrogant enough not to listen to the British people, and if they do, to think that the British people don't know what's good for them. These are people who have continually, for decades now, called people who are concerned about the mass immigration, about the small boats and so on, the crime levels and so on, and the police officers taking the knee. They have called such people, idiots. They've called them far right. They've called them racists. They've called them Little Englanders. And O'Brien is one of these people who does that. But I think they genuinely believe it. In their little bubbles, in their little communities, in their little wine bars or wherever they are, if they've got any friends to drink with, they sincerely believe this. And I think that is going to be a problem going forward, because this country needs to unite. And somehow we've got to. There was a time, which the three of us will remember, not so long ago, where actually people who were idiots were just ignored by society. Now we tend to give people like O'Brien airtime. I'm not trying to sort of stop him having his opinion. He can have his opinion, but we talk about him. We're going to talk about another character later on, I think, who I think we should just ignore. But we don't. We actually let them feed this beast of division. It's
not a bad point. It's not a bad point, is it? But it's always that fundamental question that if you ignore them, then they can also take hold. So it's sort of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I'm loving the way that Andrea Jenkins, the new mayor of Lincolnshire, I'm loving how and I think actually she's a great example of what Reform UK can do, especially if it's a candidate who's quite empowered. And I'm loving she's just taking on the MSM a bit like Marjorie Taylor Greene in the US. So she posted over the weekend, "Tents, not rents. We're creating an environment where economic illegal migrants, mainly men, are coming to Britain because we provide them with accommodation and other benefits. This must stop. We need to make it difficult to stop this pull towards Britain." Now, that's something that the vast majority of the country agrees with, but it's something that if you say on LBC, the Labour Broadcasting Company, they are genuinely stunned, like they are horrified. But what I love is Andrea still braved the Lewis Goodall show. He's the worst of the three fake news agents, I think, which is saying something. Actually, is he worse than Millie Maitlis? Maybe first equal. But anyway, she held her ground. Watch this.
At a local level, and eventually, God willing, when we get into government.
I suppose that the point would be in terms of, it's quite a divisive thing to say, isn't it? The idea that we're teaching children to hate their own country without any evidence for it.
Well, you're asking me about the evidence. I haven't seen the article, so I can't comment on that, can I? You probably need to ask Zia what his evidence is. So I think the issue is with the mainstream media, they see everything as divisive when you just call out they're rubbish. So I'm sorry, but it's right that we challenge these things. I was brought up in a working class background, Lewis, and to love our Queen at the time, our country, and to actually do your best in life, be kind, and do your best in the community. And these are principles. This is why Nigel, he's really tapped into something here. It's about community, it's about families, and it's about our country. And these are the three things that, I think young people should be taught is what is important.
I love that she just wouldn't back down, including on the issue of housing illegal migrants in tents. But first, people like Andrew Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, and even Joe Rogan have talked about a compound called epicatechin found in dark chocolate and green tea. Now, this is shown to improve blood flow, delivering more oxygen to muscles and the brain. Studies show that it reduces stress and fatigue while improving mood and enhancing muscle growth, strength, and recovery. One study found it boosted muscle growth factors by nearly 50% in just 1 week. But don't reach for the chocolate bars, okay? Not the chocolate bars, because processing actually destroys these compounds and you'd need an impossible amount to get results. So that's why Verso created Morning Being, a rich, chocolatey morning brew packed with epicatechin, cocoa polyphenols, antioxidants, and electrolytes to fuel energy, performance, focus, and longevity. Unlike coffee or other coffee alternatives, it supports muscle recovery, cardiovascular health, and cognitive function, all without caffeine crashes. Cocoa powders, drinks, and products are commonly contaminated with high levels of toxic heavy metals, but Verso conducts third-party testing on every batch to ensure they have pure, high-quality cocoa, prioritizing safety and high flavanol content. Now, I started taking Morning Bean to replace my morning energy drink. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. But actually, it's perfect to replace your coffee or even a second cup in the morning. And as a result, I feel more focused and energized. I also like how I get my daily dose of superfoods from it. So if you're looking to improve your health with something that's actually backed by research, click on the link in the description box below, or you can head on over to morning.ver.so/outspoken. Let me just repeat the address, the word morning.ver.so/outspoken. Use the code outspoken to get 15% off your first order. But now, back to the show.
Why should the British people be putting people in hotels out of their own pocket
So
when
you'd be happy
they
to
work
see,
so
you'd be
hard?
happy, you'd be content, as the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, you can have a role in this. If there are roads with people in with tents, you're content with that.
It's got to be a confined area. I mean, I have to say, this
And
isn't a reform policy.
if there were children, should they be in tents?
The fact is, we've got to stop the pull to Britain with this. And why are we paying these millions and millions of pounds to France when people come from a safe country such as France to come here? We should be sending them back to France.
So if there were children in Lincolnshire, unaccompanied migrants, and they were in tents on the roadside,
well, how are they going to get
message
here
is
in
okay.
the first place? You know,
I know,
but
once they are here, if they're in a tent, that's okay with you.
What percentage is actually children? Look, the majority of them is actually but the majority is economic migrants, Lewis. They've got the mobile phones. It's usually young men who come across, and we've got to stop this pull to Britain.
So Alex Phillips, what I'm loving with Andrea Jenkins is she's been very unafraid. I think after the situation with Rupert Lowe and during the campaign, most Reform candidates were quite scared. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I think there was a real desire to avoid giving the media anything that could be used against Reform UK on a national level. But I just love Andrea. She is calling a spade, and I think this is the way to deal with the MSM. Do you?
Yeah, I think Andrea has, oh my gosh, she's impressed me. I love her. She's the woman that you want to go to the pub with. Do you know what I mean?
She is.
She's fun, she's brave. She's also a single mum herself from a working class background. She's utterly stupendous. And she's also a team player, and she gets politics. And this is why she is just such a beautiful fit for Reform UK. And it's a tragedy and it's a great sadness to me that other people who could have been great stars within the party haven't really understood how this is a collegiate enterprise, that you have to work together, pull together, agree on a party line, stick to it, not decide to be maverick, not to decide that your vision for the party is better and then put it in national newspapers. That cannot work in the long term if you're going to be a party of government. But Andrea has just, I mean, she looked so gorgeous when she accepted her new title of the Mayor of Lincolnshire in that gorgeous sequin dress. I mean, she has just filled my heart with joy because she's it. She is it. She is exactly what Reform UK is about. Real, authentic people who are coming together as a broad family with optimism, with joy, with that message of community, family, country. and pulling together against all odds to do something phenomenal and change the country. This isn't the time for egos. This isn't the time for let perfection be the enemy of the good. This isn't the time for we need to go faster, harder, go down this avenue or that avenue, because like Nigel says, X isn't the real world. This is the time for strategy, because there is so much at stake. And I've said this before on your program, and I said to you, didn't I, that, let's see how it plays out in the locals. This is what Reform are playing for. The proof in the pudding is in the eating, and look at those results. It's worked, because politics is also about empirical evidence. It's about doing the focus.
I know, and you cannot question the results, absolutely not. And what you cannot question, Henry, either, is this mainstream media meltdown. I mean, did you see this from the Financial Times over the weekend that literally posted an unwelcome surge of right-wing populism in Britain? And Winston Marshall responded to that, saying the mainstream media elites can't hide their disdain for ordinary people. Instead of trying to understand their concerns, they write them off with derogatories like right-wing populism. I have nothing but contempt for them. Could you believe the FT just decided to dismiss this all as an unwelcome surge of right-wing populism?
I can, Dan, because it refers back to what I said earlier. There are people in this country, in the media, in politics, commentators and so on, who actually genuinely believe that they are right, that the nation is wrong, and that Reform, which is listening to the nation, is also wrong. But I think also, I'm going to be a little bit sort of party political, forgive me, but because this is something that Nigel needs to be careful of, and Reform. I mean, this family, community, country thing, that actually, pardon me for saying it, it has been the strapline of the SDP for years now. And in June last year, when the SDP and Reform did agree, I think it was 6 seats to come to sort of a little bit of an electoral sort of agreement, just as a sort of, as a feeler, if you like. Then Richard Tice became aware of this, and then blow me down, the next month, Nigel's throwing it out there as Reform's thing. And the idea that Reform is the only party doing X or the only party doing Y is itself divisive. And I think when it comes to uniting the right, as people say, I've been all for it. I've tried to do it and encourage it wherever I could. But actually the obstacle is with Reform.
Yes, because I guess Nigel would now say, though, we don't need you. We don't need
Correct.
you, SDP. We don't need you, Reclaim. We don't need you, UKIP. And that may well be true, but I would argue you still need the people. And that is the point. It's not necessarily about the party. It's about the people. And don't dismiss people who are your base. That's my concern. Because I think what we saw with Trump was this brilliant way of bringing the base together. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.